Welcome today to our final in a 6-week series of Coping with COVID. This has been a series that we've put together at Oakridge High School in an effort to bring you, Oakridge students, in touch with Oakridge graduates who are out there on the front lines doing their best to help our nation, help our state, help our community deal with the outcomes of COVID-19 and the realization of where we're at. It is my pleasure today to bring to you a graduate from 1996, Dr. Kelly Wiersema. Seldom do you have the opportunity to talk with an individual who is so multifaceted. Kelly, as I said, graduated in 1996, went on to GVSU for 4 years, and then to med school at Wayne State University. She currently is an OBGYN in Grand Rapids at St. Mary's. However, she's also a mother of 3 young kids. And finally, she owns with her husband a boxing gym. A boxing gym that was closed down through state order a couple months ago and is working to reopen and get back on the mend. If that wasn't enough, even if we didn't have anything else, Kelly Wiersema has to be best known for being maybe the best defensive girls basketball player in the history of Oakridge High School. She was on a team in 96. Coach Barry was the coach, and they went on to the state semis. One of the best teams that ever played and put on an Oakridge jersey, and Kelly Wiersema was the toughest ball player on that team. So it is with great pleasure that today I bring to you Dr. Kelly Wiersema.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to share with all of you a little bit about my experience during COVID and how things are going. From watching some of the other ones, it sounds like I can just start and kind of walk you through my journey that's gotten me up to this point, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. So kind of going back, like Coach Wood said, I graduated in 1996 from Oakridge, and I went to Grand Valley for my undergrad. When I left high school, I was planning to go to PA school to be a physician assistant. And then as I went through college, kind of shifted my mindset a bit and decided to apply to medical school instead. So I think it was towards the end of my junior year of college that I decided to go to medical school. So applied to medical schools and ended up going to Wayne State School of Medicine in Detroit. So did my schooling there for 4 years and decided to go into obstetrics and gynecology, and came back to the Grand Rapids area to do my residency. So that our residency for OBGYN is 4 years. So did 4 years in downtown Grand Rapids at Butterworth Hospital and St. Mary's. And then after that, I went and practiced for 7 years in Greenville, Michigan, which is just north of Grand Rapids. So I was there for 7 years, and then moved to the current position I'm in at St. Mary's in downtown Grand Rapids. I work as a OB hospitalist now, so it's a little bit different job. So I only work in the hospital. I don't work in an office anymore. And so kind of like an ER for OB pregnant patients. So I'll see all patients that come into the hospital. And then I staff patients with the residents and things like that. And they're obviously there for emergencies. So I work 24-hour shifts, usually work 7 24-hour shifts a month. So that's what I do now. And that kind of parallel to all that with how we ended up owning a business. I got married to my husband. My husband's from Muskegon as well. went to Muskegon High School. So we didn't actually meet till my 4th year of medical school, but we got married, and once we had kids, he was working at in the admissions office at Baker College in Muskegon. And when I started practice in Greenville, we moved, and it wasn't really feasible for him to drive to Muskegon anymore. And we had 2 kids under 2 years old at that point. So we decided to have him be a stay-at-home dad. And so he stayed home with our kids. We ended up having another daughter. So we have 3 daughters now. And he stayed home with them until our youngest started preschool. At that point, we were kind of looking for something for him to get back into the workforce. And over the last 10 years or so, we had really gotten into health and fitness, and he had become a personal trainer. So we were looking at a job maybe for him as a trainer, but came across the concept. It's a franchise, it's titled Boxing Club. So it's a boxing and kickboxing workouts, and ended up going down the pathway of opening a franchise. And we opened our boxing club in July of 2018. So coming up on 2 years now. Dave does all of the day-to-day stuff in the club. But I do a lot of the back end things. So I do all like HR, all of our accounting and inventory, things like that. So our boxing club was mandated to be closed on March 17th, as it's an indoor fitness facility. And we remain closed at this time and have not gotten a date for reopening yet. So that has certainly thrown a wrench in our plans. But so that's kind of where we're at right now. I don't know if you want me to get into more details on stuff or answer questions, or how you want to proceed.
Well, I think probably you should take a breath. Good Lord. I have 2 questions. One, what do you do with all your free time? 3 kids, 24-hour shifts, a boxing club. You must have a lot of free time.
Yeah. Right now I do.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You're right. And secondly, the thing that's probably burning in everybody's head, what was it like to play for Mr. Barry?
Oh. Such fun. I just cleaned out my basement and found all this old stuff from high school, and honestly, some of the best times. You'll look back someday and appreciate it all. But yeah, I had a great time, and Coach Barry's the best.
You guys just, I mean, without getting into high school, and then we can move on, but you guys early were, there's been 3 teams in Oakridge history, girls basketball, that were really, really dynamite teams, that were championship teams. And Kelly was the defensive stalwart of the team of 1996. You guys were just so freaking tough. You guys were. I remember because I was coaching the JV at the time, and I remember watching a video or taking a video of you boxing somebody out from Ravenna, and you boxed her into the stands. You boxed her. Do you remember that you boxed her backwards into the stands? And I kept showing that to my JV team all the time about that's how you box out. And so I knew because of that box out that you would be a physician and that you would own a boxing gym. And so here we are.
Yeah.
You guys, as normal, you feel free to pop up and ask questions whenever you want to ask Kelly any questions whatsoever, either about being a doctor, about going to school for how many years? How many years were you in school?
4 years of undergrad, 4 years of med school, and 4 years of residency. So.
Okay. And is that about what it is today? If you're a doctor, is it about 12 years from beginning to end?
Most specialties, yeah.
Okay. So about school, and for sure, about the boxing club and the struggles that she's had trying to get this thing open. Because I know that you have a lot to say about the governor's rules that she's had in regards to gyms and boxing clubs. And what is it scheduled for right now? Do you know? Is there an open date?
No, we don't.
No.
Have
Okay. And that has to be really difficult.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any questions?
Okay, yeah, I do. I'm Delaney. So owning a business, what's it like owning a business, but especially during this time, like with all this going on?
Very difficult. So we were, any new business, it takes a while for things to kind of get rolling. So you expect when you open a new business that for a period of time, you're not going to be making money. You've got to kind of ramp things up and build things up. And so we were pretty lucky to be able to do that fairly quickly. And so prior to the closing, we were kind of on a roll of, we had been profitable for probably close to 6 months or 9 months at that point. And you have all this, especially in the fitness industry, you get a lot of momentum going with the beginning of the year with people wanting to reach their new, health goals that they set for themselves. And so to abruptly have that change, and have to close, and it's multifaceted in that. So we have a membership, so we get a monthly payment from our members. So initially we just put everybody's memberships on hold to try to stem people from canceling. So right off the bat, we have zero revenue coming in. And, you think, oh, you shut down your place, that's fine if you don't have revenue. But unfortunately, your landlord still wants to be paid their rent, and you still have utility bills, and you still have, payments to your loans that you started your business with. And insurance is a big one. So we have a lot of insurance policies that we have to have in place. And so your bills continue to need to be paid while you're not having any income coming in whatsoever. So I'm happy to talk. I don't know if you want to get into detail, if you guys have talked about like the PPP loans or anything like that in class, but that was kind of one thing that was, purported to be able to save all these small businesses, which is great in theory. And we did not get it during the first round. We did get it during the second round. But unfortunately, all the restrictions that they placed on using the loan to have it forgiven aren't helpful when your business isn't open. So, you have to spend 75% of it on payroll. Well, I don't have any employees working right now. And it has to be used within 8 weeks of getting it. So we got it at the beginning of May and we're still not open. So, and then, you can only use 25% like for rent. Well, the amount that we got, that 25% doesn't even cover 1 month of our rent. So you can see where, and they did pass a bill in the House last week to do some changes to some of the requirements. So hopefully that'll pass the Senate, and that'll be helpful. But so, no revenue. And then when we do get to open, it's under totally different circumstances than what it was when we closed. So we don't really know how our people are going to respond. Are people going to feel safe coming? Obviously, we're implementing, different cleaning techniques and things like that. But and then you've lost all the momentum. That's a big thing in business, especially sales, is getting leads. So you get leads that come in that say they're interested, and then working those leads through the system, having them come in and try a class, things like that. And that all abruptly comes to a halt, and you've got to get that pipeline filled back up with all these. So it's going to take time, even once we open, to get things ramped back up, if they even do get back up to what they were before. That's, a big question mark at this point.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a lot of challenges. Now, guys, the loans that she's talking about for the businesses are kind of similar to the loans, or to the grants, the $1,200 that were given out to individual citizens. It's a way to try to keep the businesses going. But if you have all of these catches on it, 75% on payroll, on employees, and it only runs for 8 weeks, and you're not open, I don't have any idea what you can do with that loan.
Right.
That's crazy. There's nothing you can do with a loan. Now, these are loans that come from the federal government, even though her business is under the restrictions of the state government. And so this gets a bit complicated when you got federal loans inside of a state situation. Some states are allowing gyms to open. They are. It's a state by state law. And so Michigan has been more conservative in its opening of the doors than, say, Ohio or Pennsylvania, or certainly down south. And so this makes it, I think, difficult. What really amazed me is that you said that you had 6-8 months of profits going on when you came to it, and you're only a year out. I mean, to have profit 6 months in a row after being in business for a year in 3 months, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And that's where, we were feeling good with things.
I bet.
We're rolling along, and now my husband does work a lot of hours for like no pay, but that's part of what owning a business is, that especially at first. But and so it's difficult to say. I think one thing that we talk about a lot with our business is that we, from the very start, we set a vision for our business, and what our vision is that we wanted to create a community of people that pursue their goals with a fighter's mentality. So that is our vision. We speak it all the time. I mean, probably every single one of our members could tell you that. And so we never set, we set goals of, we want so many members, we want, this much profit a month, things like that. But we can't always control that. I can't control if I get 50 new members in a month, but I can control is the type of atmosphere I create in our business and how we work with our members. And so that was always our goal. And so my husband and I have talked about, if for some reason, we have every intention of opening, but, you don't know. You don't know what it's going to be like and how things are going to go. So if for some reason we don't make it through this, we feel like we've accomplished our goal already because of what we've been able to create. And so I think that's one thing when you kind of get in the entrepreneurial space is like, if this fails through no, wrongdoing of ours, we just pivot and move on and say, what's our next step? What's our next thing? We learn, we've learned so much from this. How do we take that and roll that into something else? So.
You had a fighter's mentality when you played basketball. When you always did, you were always gritty. The fact that you said we carry a fighter's mentality into the business, that sounds apropos. I want to ask you something about the business, Mike Adamley. Okay, I want to come down. I want to do this, and I showed you guys, and it's connected to Kelly's bio, the link of her, was it with ZZM or with Wood TV? Okay, and you were interviewed, and it shows the inside of the gym and the bags and the gloves and everything that you do there. And I want to do it. I'm going to come down. I've really been wanting to ever since I saw this interview with Mike Adamley. Mike Adamley played for Northwestern College, and then with the Bears. He was a wide receiver, and then he became an announcer for ESPN. And him and his wife, he has dementia. He has gotten dementia from all of the football injuries and the blows. I don't know exactly what that is called, but he and his wife are out there all the time talking about this. And I watched an interview with him, and it was sad, obviously. But they weren't feeling sorry for themselves. They were upbeat. And he was talking about, what do you do to bring your brain back? Because he forgets so much, and you can see it in his face. And he said, when he boxes on a bag, his brain just lights up. He says it lights up. He says the fact that you're having to think with your left and then your right, and then you hit that bag and hit that bag and hit that bag. He said he is so exhausted in his head after boxing the bag that it made me think, and then I started reading about it for other diseases. Parkinson's disease. It's got to be good for those kinds of diseases. And it just fascinates me. I want to go down and hit the bag. So
they actually have a program called Rock Steady that we were, before this all hit, we're planning on sending Dave to the training, but it is a program for patients with Parkinson's. And you run it out of your boxing club, and basically they come in and do boxing workouts, and that's been shown to be very beneficial for Parkinson's patients. So,
that was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Well, the interesting thing, you know, when my husband was always he loved boxing, and when he talked to me about, you know, let's look at this business, I was like, I don't like boxing. I don't want to box. So, but we went and took a class in Ann Arbor and just loved it. And they've done surveys of members of boxing club, you know, like Title Boxing Club. And, you know, almost everybody comes to this facility because they want to lose weight or get in shape or something like that. But they ask them, why did they stay? And the number one reason is the stress relief. Like, there's something about throwing punches on a 100-pound bag that makes you feel really good when you leave. So it's an awesome stress relief. It's a great workout.
Okay. Hi, it's Sully. So you said you went to college, like you went to school for another 12 years. So I was just wondering what your debt looks like after that.
Yeah, sure. So, I think I was pretty lucky overall. I had one small loan from undergrad that I paid off when I started college, or started med school. So I had some scholarships, and my parents helped pay for my undergrad. I did take out loans for medical school, and I was lucky in the fact that Wayne State's one of the least expensive medical schools in the country. And so that was good. And so I left medical school with about $160,000 of student loan debt. I deferred that when I was in residency. So you do get paid in residency, but not very much, but enough to live on. And what I did, which worked out very well for me, was when I went to Greenville to practice, it's considered a rural location. And so I was able to get loan repayment through a program through the state of Michigan for working in a rural community. So I received, when I initially went, my initial offer was for, I gotta remember, $50,000 for 2 years. And then they actually renewed it, and I received $70,000 more. So I actually got $120,000 paid off for free for working in a rural community. So that's always something to look into, depending, you know, different occupations have different type of, sometimes they'll have programs like that. So that was very nice. And my other luck was that I got in, my student loans were like the last year where you got a really good interest rate. So I have about $40,000 left, and they're only at like 1.65% interest. So I just pay the minimum payment on them now since it's such a low interest rate. So yeah, so that combination of things worked in my favor. I know several people who come out of medical school with $300,000 to $500,000 in student loan debt. So and you got to run the numbers. Like, at some point, if you're coming out with $500,000 of debt, and even if you make $250,000, $300,000 a year, you know, you gotta weigh what's the cost you're paying. So,
could you explain exactly what residency is? So you're 4 years at GVSU, then you go 4 years to Wayne State.
Yeah.
And then what is residency?
Yeah. So you do, you know, you get your undergrad, medical schools, 2 years essentially of classroom work, where you're doing book work, lectures, labs, tests, and then 2 years in the hospital as a med student. You rotate through essentially all the main specialties, and you can do some electives and things to help you try and figure out what specialty you want to go into. And then after medical school, then residency is essentially your training in the field you choose to go into. So I chose OBGYN. So that residency is 4 years. They vary from 3 to 5 years. And the residency is where you work in the hospital for the majority of time. And that's your specific on-the-job training for your specialty. So that's where you see people, you know, we worked 80 hours a week for 4 years. But that's where you learn to, for me, deliver babies, do surgery, all of that stuff. That's your training, is your residency. So that at the end of that, then you're out and can join a practice or be on your own.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question. It's Gavin. How did you get the big idea to start your own business?
So we kind of, I was thinking back through this, and I think it was just kind of a path that we went along. We, at one point, before we started the business, we had gotten involved in direct sales. So we were doing some sales and, you know, had the idea of kind of owning it. It's different. It's not a brick and mortar business. But so at least had some kind of gotten our toes wet a bit with running a business or being an entrepreneur in that respect. And one of the big things when we were involved with direct sales, they're real big on personal development. So we did a lot of reading and things, you know, and really just kind of expanded our vision of what we could do and what we were capable of. So that's one thing I would totally recommend. One of my favorite books is called The Slight Edge, and it's by Jeff Olson. And kind of the premise of it is, if you're working towards a goal, you're never just moving in a straight path. You're always moving slightly towards your goals or slightly away from your goals, depending on your actions. And it's those actions, they're these little things that are easy to do or easy not to do every day that kind of leads you to where you go. And so one of those things, when we kind of went through that phase of really doing a lot of personal development, was for us was we would read 10 pages of a good book every night. So that's something that is very easy to do. It doesn't take very long. It's very easy not to do. You can say, I'm just not going to do it tonight. But if you think about that, you know, at the end of the year, maybe you've read 10 good books that taught you good things. And it was kind of through that process, I think, that really opened our eyes to kind of what we were capable of. And, you know, if people can own businesses, why couldn't we? And so, and it also, I think, put us, with my job and things, we really wanted some flexibility. And so working for someone else doesn't always give you a lot of flexibility. And so that was really kind of our journey, to the point where when we were looking at jobs and we saw, oh, this is a business opportunity, it was like, okay, well, let's just get the information and see, and kind of worked. They take you through a process. It's called the discovery process, you know, where they just kind of walk you through everything, show you everything. They're kind of vetting you to see if they think you'll be a good business owner while you're kind of vetting the opportunity. And so that kind of led us to that point where we decided to open our own.
I have a question.
Sure.
Cameron, what made you want to become a doctor?
You know, like I said, I initially thought I wanted to be a PA. I loved science. Obviously, wanting to help people was always, you know, something that I looked, I wanted a job that I was able to do something along that lines. Why I decided, kind of made the shift from PA to doctor. I think the biggest thing was I didn't want to shortchange myself. And I think that even as a high school senior, you know, my mind wasn't even really open to the possibility of becoming a doctor. I didn't know anyone who was a doctor. Nobody in my family was a doctor. It didn't even seem like that was an option for me. So I didn't even think about it. Like, it just didn't even cross my mind. But as I went through college, and I was like, I thought I wanted to be an OBGYN, so I thought I wanted to deliver babies, and I knew PAs couldn't deliver babies. And so I was kind of like, I don't want to go through all this and then look back one day and say, I wish I would have, went to med school instead. And so I think that was kind of what led me to the path of switching from PA to go into med school.
I have a question.
Yes, Javier.
How do you think boxing will change regarding COVID-19?
Yeah. So I do think if you look at the concept of boxing and our club, we're in a little bit better position than some other fitness facilities because we don't have shared equipment. So when somebody comes in to take a class with us, they work out at their own heavy bag, but they have their own boxing gloves. So they're not really touching anything. They're hitting the heavy bag with their own gloves. So in that respect, I think that we're a little less risk than some of the other fitness facilities. But obviously, when you're working out in a contained space with people breathing heavily and things like that, that does come with risk. We have implemented essentially all new cleaning procedures. So between every class, once we can open, between every class, we will basically disinfect everything in the club. Our club is like this, the working out space is only about 2,000 square feet. So it's a little bit smaller area. So we'll be able to clean everything in between. We're going to, when we start, so our club has 36 heavy bags, we'll take out half of them. So there'll be about almost 12 feet in between every bag. So people will naturally be able to distance themselves from each other. So I think our setup itself will be okay compared to some of the other ones where you're using the same equipment as other people and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question. This is Cameron.
Sure.
Does your gym and hospital have enough PPE?
So, yes, we do right now. So that was part of, when we think of being a physician when all of this COVID started, it was hard at first. There's just a lot of unknowns. So we didn't even know, okay, what type of mask should we be wearing for what type of procedure and things like that. I will say that as a group of OBs at our hospital, we were pretty on top of what was going on and really pushing our administration to get us what we needed. We're lucky that things were delayed before they even started showing up in West Michigan. And so what we did, we did in the meantime, while we were kind of on pins and needles waiting for all this to happen, is we all ourselves just tried to procure as much PPE, essentially masks was the big thing, that we could. So we had physicians bringing in, a 10-pack of N95 masks that they had from, a construction project or something. So we literally stockpiled all these masks in our call room at the hospital until we knew that the hospital would have enough to give to us. And thankfully, that delay of COVID really starting to come into the West Michigan area gave us time for especially our hospital to be able to provide the PPE that we needed. One thing that I think is useful, social media obviously has pros and cons, but one good thing, especially with something like what I do, is that I'm in a lot of groups with other physicians. So I'll be in a group of OBGYN physicians, a group of Michigan physicians. So we were able to use those channels to really stay in contact with people from other areas that have been hit harder that could give us feedback. So we could be talking to an OBGYN in New York who could tell us what they were seeing, in their units, so that we could help prepare if in case that came here. Other thing is our hospital particularly was, I think, the first one in Grand Rapids that we started testing all patients coming into the hospital for COVID. So there was about a month from when things really started, like mid-March to mid-April, where it was a lot of it. We didn't we weren't testing people, so we didn't really know if they had it or not. And then when we started learning that a lot of people were asymptomatic, we really pushed to start testing all of our moms when they came into the hospital. And so we've had that in place now since mid-April, and that's been huge, because then we know if somebody has it or not. So we test every mom that comes in labor or for a C-section or anything. They all get a test, so we know. So then we know exactly what PPE we need to wear when we're in the room with them. So. And for the boxing club, our franchise gave us the hookup to order. So we've ordered gloves and masks, been stocking up on cleaning supplies in preparation for reopening. So we've been just kind of slowly getting those things in. But thankfully, our franchise was able to give us a connection for ordering. So
These are franchised outside of Michigan, correct?
Yeah.
So there's other clubs that have opened up
Yeah.
that are outstate. Is it primarily in the Midwest? Is it all over the country?
Yeah, so they're all over the country. Even they have some in Mexico and the Dominican Republic. So it is international. There's about 180 title boxing clubs across the country. And so that is the nice thing, like as you look at being a business owner, we obviously hadn't really owned a business before, and being part of a franchise really kind of gives you the framework of what you need to do. And so that was attractive to us to have that framework, because we didn't really know what we were doing. Sometimes we still don't, but so then you get the connection with all these other franchisees as well. So that's been, while it's disappointing that, we're still closed, we are getting to learn from the experiences. There's about 50 titles that have reopened across the country so far. Every state has a little bit different regulations, so little things are different, but at least we're able to learn from what they're doing and what's working, what isn't working, things like that. So that is a nice perk to being part of a franchise.
So have you had done any Zoom calls with other franchisees talking about the problems that you have to open?
Yeah, so our franchise sets up, we have Zoom meetings almost daily that deal with different things, but one day will be operations, one day they'll bring on some franchisees that have already opened, and you can just ask questions. So yeah, pretty much I'd say 4 days a week for probably the last 4 to 6 weeks, we have some form of webinar, Zoom call, kind of prepping us and getting us ready to reopen.
How do you go to the hospital? I mean, it just seems like so much. I mean, it really does. It seems like this business, while it's really rewarding, I'm sure it sounds like it's really rewarding. And as is being a physician, how are you able, and then have 3 kids and a husband and a dog? No dog. Okay. Well, that would have put you over the edge. Okay. How do you balance this? How are you able to balance your life?
Yeah. Well, I'll say one thing is I've always, as long as I can remember, I work well when I'm busy. Like I like having, I need things to do. I need a goal. I need a deadline for stuff. I mean, I've always just worked well. I mean, looking back, I started working when I was 16. I worked 2 jobs in college. It just always kind of been what it is. But I will say with my job currently, I work, 7 24-hour shifts a month. That's full time. So that does give me a lot of flexibility, because I do get 20 plus days off a month. Some of them, if you're coming off of 24 hours on call, you're sleeping half the day. But so I don't think that we would have been able to open the business if I worked in a practice like I did previously, because I would work 4 days a week, in the office all day long, on call 1 week, one night a week, 1 weekend a month. I just didn't have enough. I wouldn't have enough free time. So with the setup of my current job, that gives me more off time that I can squeeze in things with the business. So the stuff that I do with the business, a lot of it I can just do remotely. So, I can do our payroll from wherever. I can order things from wherever. I can do my QuickBooks from wherever. So I can just kind of fit that stuff in pockets of time here and there. I can do it all mostly remotely. So I don't have to actually go to the club to do a lot of it.
Do you personally know anybody that has contracted COVID?
Not outside of patients. I don't. Well, I do. Like the father-in-law of one of my partners got it and actually passed away. So I didn't know him personally, but I don't know. I think we've done a good job, especially in our area. We did St. Mary's did a study. They let all of us that were on units that worked with COVID patients, we could get a test for COVID for free, even if we didn't have symptoms. They ran that for 3 weeks. I think they tested 150 people and nobody tested positive for healthcare workers. So that's reassuring. And then now we're starting next week, we'll be able to get the antibody test to see if we had it and didn't know it. So I'm planning to get that next week. But I think we've done a good job with, the PPE we have and being smart about how we're doing things, that we're keeping, our healthcare workers protected, which is good.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
What do you think your biggest challenge is during this time?
Well, I'll answer that twofold because, like I said, part of this is being a doctor on one side and then a business owner. At the hospital, I would say the biggest challenge was a lot of the unknowns when things first started, not knowing exactly how this was transmitted necessarily and not knowing if we were going to have the PPE when we needed it, not knowing when or if we were going to see a big surge of patients, so we had all these preparations in place for, well, what do we do if we run out of beds at the hospital, and so just a lot of those unknowns and the uncertainties in the beginning of it. I feel like we've gotten to the point now that we kind of know what we're dealing with to a much greater extent, and we had the time to be prepared and get testing in place and all of that. So I feel like, things are rolling pretty good in that respect. And then with the business, obviously the biggest challenge is just finances, not having income coming in, and are we going to be able to ride that out? And again, the uncertainty of what's it going to be like when we open, and are people going to come back? Are new people going to want to join? And just not knowing how that's all going to end up playing out.
I have a question. It's Delaney. So what's been the economic impact for you? Has there been any? Because I know you said you still have your job at the hospital.
Yeah. So I've been lucky because of my particular job, people still having babies through the pandemic. So they still need me. So I haven't had to, I still work the same number of hours I worked. And I know some of the doctors that work in offices, they basically shut down all the offices. So a lot of those people did have to take pay cuts, which seems crazy. You're in the middle of a pandemic that doctors are on the front lines, but when you start canceling surgeries and all this stuff, there's just no revenue coming in for that either. And so a lot of physicians, even in my healthcare system, did have to take a pay cut. But like I said, because of my particular position, I've been lucky that I didn't have to take a pay cut for that. Now with our business, my husband is getting unemployment, which is interesting because he's actually getting more money through unemployment than what we were paying him from the business. So that's an interesting aspect for our employees too. And some business owners are starting to run into the issue that when you want to call your employees back, they're making more money on unemployment right now than they were making when they were working. And so that presents an interesting dilemma as well. So we've been, I would say, given what could have happened to us financially, we've been lucky. And, obviously we prepare for things like this and make sure, that we have emergency funds and all that. And we keep, our business is totally separate from our personal finances. So even if our business were to not make it, that has some impact on us financially, but we keep all of that very separate from our personal finances. So.
Thank you.
I got another question. You were talking about the 7 24-hour shifts. How does that actually work?
So because of my role, I only see patients as they come in. So I have a call room that's right on labor and deliveries. I kind of use it like my office, but I have a bed in there. So if nothing's going on and it's not busy, I can sleep while I'm there if I want. But if it's busy, you just, it's interesting. In residency, we'd be at the hospital for 30 hours easily with no sleep. I think you get conditioned to it to some degree. But yeah, so usually I'll for the most part get at least a couple hours of sleep at some point during the 24 hours, enough that, I can drive home in the morning. But so yeah, you just kind of get used to it. But so I'm there, I see patients as they come in. And then, like I say, I'm always there in case there's an emergency. And if someone's doctor's not there, then I'm right there so I can take care of it.
So you would be 24 on, and then how many off before you would be 24 on again?
It varies. So we never do more, like we always have at least 24 hours off in between.
Okay.
We try not to do more than, we call them like every other shifts. So we try not to do more than 3 every other shifts in a row. So that'd be like work, 1 day off, work, 1 day off, work. That's about our limit before we're pretty dead by the end of that. But that's the nice thing with this job. If I cluster some of my shifts together, like I've been off a week and a half right now because I worked 3 shifts the week before, so it just varies. And my partner's really good about making sure we have the time off that we need if we're going on vacation or anything like that. So it just varies month to month, but typically I'll usually work about 2 shifts a week on average.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Jagger, Mackenzie, Hannah.
Everybody's already asked all the questions that I was gonna.
That's okay, Jagger. I had another question. Do you box?
Yeah, it's a great workout. I'd never boxed before we went to Ann Arbor and tried it and looked at to see the concept, but it's a fantastic workout. So that's the other cool thing is that we have kids as young as 8 years old can take classes all the way up to grandmas. So my mom takes classes. So you don't have to have any skill level and experience. You're working out at your own heavy bag, so you can go at your own speed and pace. And so really, there's no limit. Anybody can do it.
What's a typical workout? So
a lot of times now we'll do 45-minute classes. So what we'll do is a 7-minute warm up, and then you'll do 8 3-minute rounds. So you'll box for 3 minutes. You'll have a minute of rest in between each round where we call it active rest. So we'll give you an exercise to do. So do squats or lunges or something. And then we'll end with a 7-minute core workout. So it's really a full body workout. Like I said, typically we do 45-minute classes. We have 1-hour classes. We have once a week we'll do like a 75-minute class. That's a 12-round class. So, but it's a great calorie burn, great workout.
Do we have a question?
I'll ask one last one.
Okay, Cameron.
Do you think there's going to be a second wave of this?
Good question.
Great question. I do think there probably will be a second wave to some degree, just based on what we think we know. That's the hard part, though. Nobody really knows. We saw how off a lot of the models were at the beginning of all this. But, I think that the consensus, most people do believe there'll be some sort of second wave. Hopefully not nearly as dramatic as the first. And I think a lot of people put in good measures, good things that maybe we should have been doing anyways, sanitizing our hands a lot and things like that would reduce, even just influenza. So I think that as long as we keep doing a lot of those things, that hopefully we won't run into as big of a second wave, and then hopefully we'll have a vaccine not too long after that. And that will help, kind of get things back on a more normal trajectory.
Best case scenario, I mean, when you're looking down the road and you're looking at the summer, and I know you can't predict what is going to happen, but when do you see you guys up and running? When do you feel that that's going to happen?
I feel fairly confident we'll be up and running by the beginning of July.
Okay.
It could be sooner, but I think we need to see a little bit of how things play out with restaurants reopening and things like that before she'll give the okay for gyms and salons and things like that. She made a comment she wanted to have them open by 4th of July weekend. So I think that's I'm pretty confident it'll be at least by then, if not sooner. But.
And then isn't it next week that restaurants and bars reopen?
Yeah, they can start reopening.
So they're going to watch and
right.
see what happens. And
over the next couple of weeks after that, do we see a big spike of cases or anything? But through all this, and I think it's one thing to keep in mind when you see all these numbers. I've been a huge numbers person during this because that's the only thing I felt like I could really hang on to. But positive tests, you have to always, when you see that's the number they report, but you have to remember we've started testing so many more people. So every hospital in Grand Rapids now tests every single person that comes into the hospital. So we're finding more people, but are those people sick? And the answer, most of the people we have found that are positive are not having any symptoms at all. So we see numbers from our hospital of how many people are hospitalized with COVID, how many people are in the ICU on a ventilator with COVID, and those numbers have always stayed very low and haven't really changed much, even though we've seen the numbers go up, in our area particularly.
Wait, Mr. Wood.
Yeah.
So I just have a final question. Sorry, I had to think of one because I wanted to ask one more. So it's actually about the restaurants opening. So you can either answer or her, both, whatever. But what do you guys think about restaurants opening and stuff like that before hair salons and stuff like that? Do you think that's good, or should it be reversed, or what?
I just, and this is more my opinion, but I have a hard time following what the data she's following that is informing her decisions. I personally don't see how a hair salon where the stylist and the client both have a mask on is a very high risk scenario. So I think, I think I'm to the point, I think most people are to the point that we've got to get back to living our lives to some extent, do it smartly as best we can, social distance, wash your hands, all that good stuff. But that it's probably time to we got to get back out there and start doing stuff, and we'll see what happens. But to this point, we haven't seen any clear evidence in states that have opened that they've seen a big spike in cases. So I think we're going to be good. We just gotta get to that point. So
and my hat's off to you. I mean, to be a physician and to be owning a boxing gym that has been so successful and will be. I mean, with that attitude, and people will come back. People will come back. I'm coming. I'll be there. I'll be there. It's been so nice visiting with you. It's been so nice talking with you. You're just doing so well. Just doing so well. I think this has been a positive experience all the way around, and to see Oakridge students doing such good things and being so successful out there, that makes it good. That makes it good. So even when you have a pandemic, good things come out of a pandemic. And one of them is Dr. Kelly Wiersema. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And to all you young ones out there, well done, guys. Very, very well done. We could have packed this thing in 6 weeks ago. Instead, we brought in people, graduates from Oakridge, and you guys, your questions, your insights, your thoughtfulness and respect, the fact that your assignments got better and better and better, and that so many of you emailed these speakers and asked thoughtful questions. I am so impressed with the Oakridge class of 2021. Well done, very well done. And so you have the summer. Don't turn it off. Stay mindful. Be awake. Take notice of what's going on around you. Wear your mask. Keep your distance. Be mindful. And people, stay woke. Stay woke. Thank you so much. See you next fall.